be me. Living near a city called Tabatinga inside the Amazon rainforest. I used to live alone at the time. I had just graduated in the military sergeant school and got transferred there. As I worked in the military, we had weekly training inside the jungle. There we learned everything, from basic survival, to gun management in humid conditions. The days were tiresome, but the payment and the job was worth the effort. So, I lived there for 1.5 years. I'm a very isolated person, so I have a lot of difficulty making friends and having company in general. My house was not big. As I would be living alone, I chose a tiny house, so I could take care of it easily. The house had only one floor, was literally a square with 4 rooms. A bedroom, a bathroom, a living room and a kitchen. There was a small laundry area outside, and the house was surrounded by a wall. I would go every day from my house to work and back. I avoided going out, especially when it was dark, since it wasn't abnormal that animals would roam the streets at night. At the end of the 3rd semester there, I started feeling very lonely and depressed. I finally found it was time to find some kind of company in the form of a cat or dog. And so I did. In a Saturday, I got my car, a Ford EcoSport, and traveled miles to the nearest city. There I looked for the local animal control. I asked if they had a cat or a dog there for adoption. They said they had found a box with some kittens inside, and there was only one left for adoption. I went there and got Yellow, my cat. I took care of him and he grew strong. He was an indoors cat, since having an outside cat was fairly dangerous. 1 year passed, and things were going normal by then. One day, we were patrolling an outpost. The outpost was small, and completely surrounded by woods. It was around 2 a.m. and I was outside talking to another dude. Suddenly we hear some movement behind the trees. We point the flashlight to where the movement came from. We keep looking to the trees. No more movement. We dismissed it as a wild animal. When morning came, I went to the spot to see if I could find any animal markings. I found no signs an animal was there. When I was inspecting the ground, some kind of log called my attention. When I gave it a better look, I found that in reality it was a tiny wooden statue. It was all dirty and somewhat deep in the dirt, so it must have been there for a long time. I got the tiny statue home. I cleaned and sanded the thing so I could see better what it was. It was a statue of a jaguar. I found it really interesting, and decided to keep it. I placed it in the living room, next to some other decoration I had. Yellow didn't seem to like the statue though. He completely avoided the corner that it was. I thought to myself that maybe, as the thing was just thrown around in the jungle, there was some animal smell to it. Even though I had washed it, cats are more sensitive to these. Some days passed, and nothing wrong happened. One night, however, I woke up. I went to the kitchen, and on the way there I saw Yellow looking at the statue, with the hair on his back all up. I got him and carried him with me around the house. After the water I quickly went back to sleep. I got Yellow inside the bedroom and closed the door, since he was acting weird. The next day I woke up. As it was a Saturday I didn't have to go to work. After going to the bathroom, I opened the door to my living room to go to the kitchen. As I opened it, I looked at the shelf that had the statue. It wasn't there, instead it was on the floor. I thought that maybe Yellow had messed with it before I got to him, and it ended up falling only at night. I then placed it back on a shelf where it was. I went with my day as normal. That night, however, things started to get weird. While I was preparing to sleep, I saw some movement on the other side of the window, on the backyard. My window had a bug net on it, but even then I managed to spot something moving. I approached the window and got scared, as I saw this enormous spider on the outside of the bug net. I decided to leave it alone since it couldn't get inside. I went to sleep normally later. The other day, when I woke up, I couldn't see the spider anymore. I went to the bathroom. When I was using the bathroom I saw some movement behind the sink. I stood still, and a big scorpion slowly moved from behind the sink. I wasn't sure how did it get in, but I realized that maybe it somehow passed through the bathroom bug screen. I managed to catch the scorpion in a mason jar. I opened the front door to release the thing outside. As soon as I opened, 3 massive roaches just bolted to the grass. They were in front of my house. I took the scorpion to the street and released it in a nearby bush. I went back home. When I got home I noticed there were flies inside my house. Not small flies, like big, green flies. Now I was beginning to freak out. I started looking for holes in the bug screens while using insecticide all over the house. I found nothing. The day went by with no further incidents. That night, it was hard to sleep. All I could think about was waking up with a massive spider on my chest. At about 1 a.m. I ended up sleeping. The next day, I woke up and felt something weird on my head. I got scared for a second then realized it was Yellow. He had never done that though. I stood up, inspecting the house for bugs while getting ready for work. I finally went to work after making sure there were no bugs inside the house. Outside the door however, this time there were around 6 to 7 roaches. One of them didn't run from me and got the boot. At work, they sent us to an advanced outpost. The outpost was very far away, so we went by jeep. Me and other 3 dudes were there. The man that was driving was a very good driver. One of the best. The road was a dirt road, and it had rained a few hours earlier. When we were close to the outpost, the jeep lost control. It turned around and the jeep flipped over on a hill. After some flipping we finally crashed into a tree. I felt a sharp pain through my right arm, and it went numb for a second. I had broken my arm and was bleeding. I managed to get out from the car, and I helped the others also get out. The dude that was at the side of the driver on the passenger seat had this very ugly wound on his head. Thankfully his skull seemed to be intact. The others were shaken but seemed to be fine. The driver started to ask for help on the radio. It took some minutes, but someone finally answered. As we were waiting for rescue, I asked the driver what had happened. He looked at me with wide eyes. There was something on the road. What was it? I don't know, Sergeant. How the fuck you don't know? I don't know, it was like a man, a very tall, skinny and brown man. I just looked at him in disbelief. When I calmed down I decided that he might be shaken by the whole deal, and maybe was just having a hard time remembering. Rescue came, and they took all 4 of us to the hospital. There they immobilized my arm and sent me home since it wasn't a bad fracture. My right arm was now broken, and I had to do everything with my left arm. I was given a week off for the trouble. As I got inside my house, I was hit by a foul smell. As if something was rotting. I called for Yellow, and he came. I started looking around. I thought that maybe Yellow had killed a rat or something. As I was looking around I was trying to smell the source. I finally looked on the living room's shelf. I noticed that the statue was gone. Maybe Yellow was playing with it. I kept looking around, until I found the statue behind my sofa. As I bent down to get it, I realized 2 things. The smell came from there, and I could hear a hissing sound. I stopped. When I looked again, there was this medium-sized brown snake near the statue. I jumped back. I went to my room and grabbed my machete. I pulled the sofa forward, then I could have a better look at the snake. It was just there hissing at me. I hit it with the machete around 3 or 4 times, but I ended up hitting the statue once, and it dented a bit. As I grabbed the dead snake with a plastic bag on my hand, I could see the reason of the smell. The snake had a massive wound on its belly. It was like a large cut, and some of its bowels were outside. The area was very infected, and it smelled really bad. I went outside and threw the damn thing away. I started thinking about how the fuck was that thing inside my house? And how was it alive with that kind of wound? I took the now dented statue, and placed it back on the shelf. After spraying some perfume around the house, the analgesics finally got to me. I took a shower and went to sleep. In the middle of the night I woke up with a loud meow from Yellow. The only light source was the light from the window on top of my bed. When I looked down to my feet, I saw what Yellow was meowing and hissing at. On the wall, as if going out from it, there was this horrible thing. It was like a human, but freakishly tall and dark. It had a face that almost looked like a skull. Inside, two yellow eyes reflecting the light of the moon. It had some kind of hair that kept moving on its head, and an oversized mouth. It was just standing there, with one of its spindly arms up almost as if it was stuck on the wall. When I saw it, I screamed as loud as I could. I rolled around the bed until I got to the light switch, and finally flipped it. When the light went on, the thing disappeared. I closed the door from my bedroom, and stood there with the lights on, almost as if my heart would burst out from my chest. At around 3 a.m. I heard movement in the kitchen. Suddenly plates start breaking, and part of the house shakes. I just stood inside my room. After a while it stopped. As soon as dawn came, I grabbed my phone and called one of my co-workers. I called the driver from the last day, but I did not leave the safety of my bedroom. I greeted him on the phone, and asked him what exactly he had seen on the road the day before. This time he answered that it might have been a tapir. I felt perplexed. "You can tell me the truth." He stood in silence for a second. Then he told me what he had seen. He described again a tall shape with dark skin. It might have been a tapir. I then told him, "Listen, whatever the fuck that thing was, it was in my room." "What was that?" He stood in silence. "Listen, you live here by years now, tell me what the fuck was that thing?" "Are you in your house?" he asked. "Yes, okay, I am going there." Then he hanged up the phone. Now I had to deal with exiting the room. There was sun outside, so the house was fairly lit. I grabbed my gun that I kept in a drawer, a Taurus 86 TA, and slowly opened the bedroom door. Keep in mind that if something had attacked me, as I could only use one arm, I had to put the gun aside for a moment. Also, I couldn't shoot anything with my left hand. I moved around the house, waiting for the worst. As I got to the kitchen, everything was in place. No broken plates, no open drawers. On top of the sink, however, there was a big spider. I kept looking around to see if I could find anything. Thankfully there was only the spider. I got a piece of wood and crushed it to death. I noticed more flies around the house too. I ended up using the insecticide all over the house again. When I was done, I heard a car parking in front of my house. I opened the front doors. The driver, who I will call Michael, got inside. He sat on the sofa and I sat on his side. "Michael, what was that thing?" He slowly replied, "Anon, do you believe in ghosts, spirits and demons?" I kept looking at him for a second. "I have seen things and I don't know what they are." "That's enough," he said. "Anon, I come from a family that lived around here for generations. I used to hear stories about those things, but I never thought that I will see one for myself." "Those things?" "The thing you saw, and I saw too, it was a Jurupari. A demon for the old tribes that lived here." I stood in silence. "They are kept sealed in objects, to which the mage would keep around its victim so the demon would haunt it, and eventually take the victim's soul." I immediately stared to the wooden statue. "I found that in the woods." Michael looked at the statue too. "Yeah, that's definitely a native thing." I then told him of the critters that were appearing out of nowhere inside my house. He confirmed that it was related to the curse. "Can you help me get rid of this statue?" Michael accepts, but says he will not put the statue in his car. I then grabbed my car keys and handed them to him. "Bring the cat," they said cats were protectors. I then grabbed Yellow and took him with us. "Where are we taking the statue?" I asked. "I think we better throw it on the river." "Can't we burn it or just crush it to sawdust?" "No, if you break that thing the Jurupari will get out." "Damn, I accidentally hit it with a machete the other day, but it didn't break, just dented it. I think it's okay." We stopped near the river. There was a makeshift bridge on top of it, and we got out. I made Yellow stay in the car, and took my gun with me. The statue in my hand. We walked to the middle of the bridge, and from there I thrown the statue to the river with all my strength. Well, I guess it worked, I said, looking at Michael. Michael's eyes were wide opened, looking at something at the edge of the river. I looked too. There at the margin of the river, the Jurupari creature was again, staring directly at us. The unnatural mouth opened again, and it began slowly walking to our direction. I could hear whispers and voices on my head, speaking a language I didn't recognize. I was shaking in fear, and the thing was walking in a way that it would get between us and the car. I grabbed my gun, and unloaded all the 6 bullets on the thing. Most seemed to miss, and the ones that hit did no damage. I could see the thing's legs now, thin as a piece of wood, ending in pointed things. It had no feet. The fear and all the noises in my head got to me, and I got on my knees and leaned to the edge of the bridge. The wind became unnaturally fast. All the while I was listening to something coming from the car. Suddenly, Yellow finds a way out of the car, meows really loudly, and jumps on the thing. The creature made a terrifying roar and bolted into the woods, with Yellow right behind him. I looked around and Michael was nowhere to be seen. Michael. Yellow. I ran to the car, and got in. I then realized, Michael had the keys. Michael, Yellow. I yell again. I then see Michael running from the other side of the bridge. I quickly got out from the driver's seat, and went to the passenger. Michael gets inside and tries to start the car. Yellow. I yell outside once again. I then see a small figure running in our direction. Something was following it, as the trees behind it were shaking. I opened the door, and Yellow jumped in right as the car started. Michael went forward through the bridge with the car. "What's ahead?" I asked. "It ends on a dead end now, the road was deactivated." When there was space, Michael just did a 180 dirt drift and turned the Ford EcoSport around. Then he floored it. We passed so fast through the old bridge that the car almost jumped. It was dark already when we got to my house. Me, Michael and Yellow got out from the car, and as I opened the door to the living room, there it was. The statue. On the shelf again. As if nothing had happened. "Oh shit," I said. Yellow hissed. I looked at Michael, that looked really scared now. "I get the statue and on, I think I know who can help." I got the statue and we got in the car again. The car was already parked outside. Michael gets his phone and calls someone. As he is calling, I see the street is completely empty. The lights from back of the street start to dim a little bit. They dim until they fade out. The dimming lights are getting close to us, but Michael is on the phone. "Michael, we got to go." He looks behind the car, and sees the lights. Holy shit. He turns the car on, and floors it. He drove all the way to a nearby village, going really fast through the dirt roads. As we got there, he stopped near a walled-off house. We got out of the car and got inside a big metal door. Inside, around 10 people with native vests were waiting on us. The place was only a landfill surrounded with a high fence, and a campfire in the middle of it. Michael and a dude started speaking in another language. Then Michael turned to me and said, "Give him the statue." I gave it to him. The man took it and started staring at it. Then he said something. Michael then said to me, "We are all sitting around the fire, they will do some chanting. Whatever you do, don't get up nor open your eyes." I agreed and we all sat around the fire. I closed my eyes and the people started chanting. Among the chanting, I started hearing the whispers and the voices I heard earlier in the presence of the thing. Yellow, who was sitting at my lap, started hissing. After a while, it all stopped. "You can't open your eyes now, Anon." I opened my eyes. Every one of the dudes were covered in sweat, and the one that seemed to be the boss was holding a tiny box of wood. We all stood up, and the dude handed the box to me. Michael then said, "You can get it now, but never open that box." I felt fear once again. What? So I have to keep this damn thing? Michael asked something for the dude. Dude replied. He says you can give it to someone, but the person has to be willing to take it. He also says that knows some people who will be very happy to take this box from you. That I want it gone. I don't want to risk this thing falling to the ground and breaking. Michael talked to the dude once again. Okay, we have to go then, I also don't want this thing near me. We ended sleeping in a hotel nearby that night, and as soon as it was morning, we took the box to a nearby city. There we met two brothers who were very interested in the story and all. They took the box. It's been some time now, some years to be more exact. Yellow is still alive and well, and from what I heard, the box is now in another state.